Hearts growing in a lab. Artificial hearts that could soon replace a human heart. Or are genetically modified pigs the organ factories of the future?
Whether it pleases the poet or not, a heart is nothing but a pump.
But how near are we to such future visions? Organs remain in short supply. Across the world, thousands of people are currently waiting for a new heart.
Only about 50% of the patients who actually need a donor heart can get one. A large proportion of the patients die while waiting for an organ.
To combat this growing organ shortage, science is delving into new territory. Even now, lab-produced heart valves offer new hope to children born with heart defects. But is science crossing ethical lines?
What do we do here, and where is it going too far?
Elmar Sprink pushes the boundaries of what's possible with a second heart.
Elmar is absolutely a single case.
He's determined to grasp his chance of a second life.
Health is the greatest gift, and you learn to appreciate it even more when you've been seriously ill. Sport's always been at the centre of my life. Before the transplantation, since I was 30, my passion was the triathlon. Sometimes, when I run through a forest or over a mountain, I stop for a moment to remember. I'm so grateful that someone has given me their heart.
On the 12th of July 2010, Elmar's heart suddenly stopped working.
Es war ein heißer Sommertag. Ich habe von zu Hause gearbeitet.
It was a hot summer day. I was staying at home and was watching the Tour de France. And the next thing I remember, I was in a hospital and had a tube up my nose.
Das war, dass ich dann im Krankenhaus lag und Kabel in der Nase hatte.
His wife Karin finds him lying on the floor and calls the emergency service. The doctors are puzzled. Nobody knows the exact cause for his sudden heart attack. His condition is alarming. With each month that passes, his condition worsens dramatically. Eventually it becomes clear, Elmar needs a new heart. Elmar is far from alone. Heart diseases are the #1 cause of death worldwide. In Europe, 4 million people die each year from heart failure. So why is our heart so vital to us? The heart is the engine room of our lives. In an adult, 100,000 kilometers of blood vessels need to be supplied by the heart, a relentless pump that reliably beats 36 million times a year. Even by the 10th week in a mother's womb, the heart begins to work. From this point on, the heart sucks oxygen-poor blood into the right ventricle. From there it passes through the pulmonary artery into the lungs. Here the blood is enriched with oxygen and transfers to the left ventricle. The blood is then pumped through the aorta and circulated throughout the body. Jan Gummert runs the Clinic for Thoracic and Cardiovascular Surgery in Bad Oeynhausen. It's one of Europe's leading heart transplant centers. Like many others, Elmar Sprink is waiting for a new heart. Elmar has no known previous medical conditions, somewhat rare amongst cardiac patients in need of a new organ.
Half our patients suffer from chronic heart disease. This is a malfunction of the heart circulation system and can lead to a weakening of the heart and eventually even a transplantation.
The
other half of our patients suffer from heart muscle problems. Very often the reasons are genetic.
The doctors here annually perform about 80 heart transplants. What is almost becoming routine today was anything but 50 years ago. At the Groote Schuur Hospital in Cape Town, South Africa on the night of December the 3rd, 1967, Dr. Christiaan Barnard performs the world's first human-to-human heart transplant. The recipient is 54-year-old Louis Washkansky. After an operation by a 30-strong team lasting many hours, the donor heart begins to beat in a new body, a medical miracle. News of the first successful heart transplant reverberates around the world. It makes the cover of Time magazine. In France, Paris Match questions whether doctors should have the right to transplant hearts at all. In Germany, on the other hand, the surgeon is celebrated as Barnard the Heart Transplanter. Pictures show Louis Washkansky recovering well after surgery. In fact, he only survived 18 days. He died of pneumonia. The strong drugs designed to prevent rejection of the new heart also stopped his immune system functioning properly.
He did not die from the condition that we treated him for. And it was really heartbreaking at autopsy to see how beautiful this heart looked. It was normal in size. The suture lines were all intact without any evidence of infection or clotting inside the heart.
Only after many years and numerous setbacks did heart transplants become a safe procedure. Today, 50 years on, such operations are part of everyday medical practice. In particular, the development of more advanced drugs are helping improve survival rates. And yet the number of heart transplants is declining due to an acute lack of organs. For patients, this results in long waiting times. For heart patient Elmar, time is also running out.
Mitte Februar 2012.
It was mid-February 2012, and I'd already been waiting 4 or 5 weeks at the hospital in Bad Oeynhausen when I suffered another cardiac arrest. Luckily, they were able to resuscitate me, but then they informed my family that I probably had only 12 to 24 hours to live.
Dann gesagt, dass ich nicht mehr als 12 bis 24 Stunden noch zu leben habe.
Elmar's doctors must act quickly. As a stopgap solution, they use a heart support system for his left ventricle. With every beat of a healthy heart, approximately 70% of the blood volume in the left ventricle is pumped into the bloodstream. For each of Elmar's heartbeats, the volume pumped was less than 20%. An artificial blood pump, which is attached directly onto the heart, to the left heart chamber, sucks oxygen-rich blood from the left ventricle and pumps it into the aorta, the main artery, and from there blood circulates throughout the body. A thin cable connects the pump to a control unit and batteries on the outside of the body. The device keeps Elmar alive.
Ich konnte die Beine gar nicht mehr bewegen, weil dann ging der Alarm an.
I couldn't move my legs, as the alarm would then go off, because of kinking in the tubes through which the blood was flowing.
So wie ich jetzt hier sitze.
I could only sit like I am sitting now, leaning slightly backwards. I was washed, had to use the bedpan and a urinary catheter. My heartbeat was fixed at 110. My own heart was powerless. Sometimes I used a stethoscope to listen to the ceramic pump. My old heart was still there, but there were all these machines that did all the work.
Es war alles nur Maschinen, die das Herz praktisch angetrieben haben.
It is estimated that a third of all patients in Europe needing an organ die while on a waiting list. In Germany, it's a particularly serious problem, as people have to actively volunteer to donate their organs after death, and only a third of Germans currently do so. For over 17 years, Gertrude Greifhige has grappled with the ethical questions surrounding transplant surgery.
If you ask the citizens of our country whether they would like to have an organ transplantation, 95% will say yes. But as we know, these organs can only come from living organisms. We should expect an equally high number of people to be willing to become organ donors, but this figure is much, much lower. Why is this the case?
In the Bavarian countryside, a research lab is carrying out tests using very special pigs.
These pigs are looking like normal pigs, but actually they are genetically modified. So they carry several constructs to overcome the immune reaction of a primate organ recipient. We must be absolutely sure that no disease is transmitted from the transplanted organ to the primate organ recipient, so that we make sure that no infectious agent from outside is brought inside this facility.
Could pigs like these really be a solution to the worldwide shortage of heart donors?
Pigs are quite suitable as potential organ donors for humans because the size and also the function of the organs is quite similar, and we can also breed these pigs quite well. So pigs have a short generation interval of only 1 year, and usually they have in 1 litter 8 to 12 piglets. A very important point is that the genetic modification of pigs is now very well established, and this is necessary because we need to overcome mechanisms of xenotransplant rejection, and we need also to overcome physiological incompatibilities between pigs and humans.
In laboratories at the University of Munich, Eckhard Wolf and his team are trying to find out how a pig heart can be adapted for use in a human.
We generate our genetically engineered pigs by the cloning technique, according to the Dolly principle. So the first step is that we introduce the desired modifications into cells, and then we check in vitro in cell culture whether everything is correct. And if this has been shown, we use the cells as nuclear donors for cloning, and then the cloned embryos are transferred to recipient cells in the correct stage of the cell cycle. The steps before the cloning take 2 to 3 months. And once we have transferred the cloned embryos to recipients, the piglets are born after 3 months, 3 weeks and 3 days.
Part of the work of the team is to see if transplanting whole pig hearts into human beings might actually work. The tests have to be carried out with a whole organ. For this, the pig has to die. In this experimental setup, the pig heart is first revived by connecting it to a blood circulation machine. The heart is slowly beginning to pump. A defibrillator must be used to get the heart to beat correctly.
Here we have the possibility to test how a genetically modified pig heart reacts when it comes into contact with human blood. For this experiment, we have reconstructed the human blood cycle. Here is the pulmonary circulation, where the blood, as in the human body, absorbs oxygen. And with this model, we can reproduce the circulation of human blood, even modifying the blood pressure as we like for our tests.
These experiments will determine whether a pig's heart might be tolerated inside a human body.
We think that perhaps in the next 5 to 10 years it might be possible to transplant whole organs like hearts to human recipients.
Before the first transplant of a pig heart into a human, there are many legal and ethical hurdles that stand in the way.
I think everyone knows that there's a big lack of organ donors in human medicine. And if one is thinking about that, nearly 60 million pigs are slaughtered per year in Germany alone, just for human consumption. I think it's also acceptable that a few pigs die, not because ending on our table, but saving human lives in the future.
Das entscheidende Argument ist ja die Verwendung einer.
The crucial argument is we're using a species that combines intelligence, feelings and dignity, and we're selectively breeding these pigs solely as an object.
Ausschließlich zum Zwecke der Verwendung wie ein Objekt, ein Produkt.
A product for a medical procedure. This crosses a line, and that's the main discussion.
Und das ist die hauptsächliche Diskussion.
For human transplant patients, pig hearts are currently not a truly viable solution. That said, there's been a sometimes drastic drop in the number of organ donors. For many, there's the extremely delicate question of when is one actually dead?
Das ist eine sehr große Befürchtung, dass
It's a common and widespread fear that when you have an organ donor card, or you have otherwise decided to give away your organs, that this will change the way doctors will treat you. In particular, there is the anxiety that doctors will only look at the potential organ donor and stop a treatment early to get their hands on the organs. This is clearly not the case, because if one is known to be a potential donor, the treatment must be prolonged even beyond the actual moment of death.
Durchführen.
In most countries, the prerequisite for organ donation is brain death, the irreversible loss of the brain's function. In many parts of Europe, 2 independent physicians must confirm that the patient has been brain dead for at least 12 hours. Only then can the organs be removed and released for donation. In order to keep the organs alive, the patient is artificially respirated. The headquarters of Transplant in the Netherlands is responsible for the distribution of organs to 8 European countries. They work around the clock, monitoring the availability of new organs, matching appropriate biological characteristics, and relative urgency.
Ich rufe an mit einem primäres Herzangebot für Spender 1.
More than 1,000 heart patients are here on the waiting list, but each year only about half of them actually receive a new heart. Elmar's life remained on a knife edge for 7 months until they found his perfect match.
Es war der 8. Juni, es war ein Freitagabend.
It was the 8th of June, a Friday evening, when the nurse, Andre, arrived and told me and my wife, Karin, that we can begin. I remember his precise words. Then we thought, what's going on? Yes, we have a heart for you. We'll leave you alone now for a while. Karin and I looked at each other and we knew this was our only chance. I couldn't live forever using the artificial machine, and it was obvious that the one and only possibility was to get a new heart.
Und es gab nur die Möglichkeit mit einem neuen Herz.
If a suitable donor heart is found for a heart patient, everything has to run smoothly in the operating room because the surgeons don't have much time.
Usually, in all heart transplants, we are under huge pressure time-wise. That means as long as we are able to cut down the time between donation of the heart and implantation of the heart for 3.5 hours, then it's more or less fine. But every additional hour increases the mortality of 10%.
Could this rather plain-looking organ transportation box actually be announcing a new era in transplant medicine? It's being called the Organ Care System, and it's one of the most advanced products recently developed in transplant surgery. Instead of using the conventional method where a heart is kept cool using ice, donor organs can be transported, attached to an artificial blood supply, and kept oxygenated.
The organ care system now is a completely different approach. You take the heart, you put it in the organ care system, then it's being perfused by blood and it's also beating. And during this time, there is hopefully, we don't know for sure yet, but hopefully less damage to the organ, and even on the contrary, there is a possibility that we will be able to treat the heart.
The heart which the doctors are transplanting today in Freiburg comes from a distant other part of Germany. In Europe, it is estimated that this is the 200th patient to benefit from this device. Without the new system, the organ wouldn't have survived the lengthy transportation time without potential deterioration. It also offers clinicians valuable extra preparation time. The organ care system is currently expensive and more research is needed, but the time that it affords surgery teams could help save lives. Only 1 month after the transplant, Elmar is allowed home to continue his recovery. Even today, he remembers the first moments of his new life.
Was ich besonders angenehm empfunden hat, ist irgendwie Sonne.
What I really loved was to feel the sun on my skin. And walking barefoot on the grass was also a great feeling.
Auf dem Rasen, das war halt ein tolles Gefühl.
Despite some setbacks, Elmar is fighting step by step to regain his normal life. He's driven by his desire to ultimately get back to his sport.
Das erste halbe Jahr.
The first 6 months were really hard. My blood pressure was extremely high. I had chest pains. My blood levels went up and down. That was tough. In August, I got on my bicycle for the first time. During my first ride, my average speed was 12.5 kilometers per hour. That's ridiculously low. I just wanted to ride somewhere. At some point, an elderly woman overtook me with her shopping bags while I was dressed in my full cycling gear. She must have thought, what a complete idiot. First, I managed 7 kilometers, later 10 kilometers, and so on.
Und so ging das halt weiter mit Fahrradfahren.
Back in Bad Oeynhausen, Elmar visits Michel Morschus, the surgeon who operated on him 5 years ago.
Dass das neue Herz so gut funktioniert und auch mit den Medikamenten ist halt schon schön. Für mich auch schön, weil ich natürlich auch gerne Sport mache.
Was sehr erstaunlich ist, dass so ein Spenderherz so extrem.
But even if things are currently looking good with Elmar's heart, a tricky question remains. How long will it last?
Was bei Transplantation finde ich immer unheimlich wichtig.
I think what's important about transplanted hearts is the fact that they're not forever. After 10 years, the survival rate is about 55%. After 20 years, perhaps 25%. The problem is the chronic, natural rejection of new hearts.
Natürlich chronisch abgestoßen werden. Ne?
Elmar hopes to extend his second chance of life. He takes detailed care of everything to try and keep his heart healthy and fit.
I believe that many things that are routine for most people are anything but routine for a transplant patient. As far as possible, I want to reach a normal life expectancy, and I just want to be healthy.
Ich will echt einfach nur gesund sein.
Health is the greatest gift, and you learn to appreciate it even more when you've been seriously ill.
Wenn man halt mal richtig krank war.
Immunosuppressant drugs allow Elmar to live with his donated heart. Every morning at 9 he takes them. Without the drugs, his body's own immune system would attack and destroy what it naturally detects as a foreign organ. The downside is that the drugs have many side effects.
Das sieht jetzt erstmal nach einer Menge aus.
This seems to be a lot, but here at the front, these are the immune suppressive drugs. I have to take these. The other pills at the other end are just nutritional supplements.
Ergänzungsstoffe.
Because the cells are those from the donor, Elmar's body perceives the new organ as a foreign body. T cells recognize these foreign cells and mark them. The immune defenses are activated. As a result, the foreign cells are degraded or killed. What Elmar then experiences is a reaction known as an acute rejection.
The real challenge in transplantation is to find a drug that blocks the immune response in the heart but does not affect the rest of the immune system.
Federica Marelli-Berg and her colleagues at Queen Mary's University in London may have found something.
Based on our knowledge on the migration of memory cells, we thought that maybe targeting topographic memory, so preventing the cells not so much from being activated but from migrating to the graft, could be helpful, because we could selectively block migration to a certain organ if we knew the area code, the molecules that are used by T cells to migrate to this particular organ.
It's early days, but using this research, new drugs could be developed, providing immense hope for all transplant patients. Elmar is determined not to give in, despite any limitations his current drugs might place on him. Elmar's performance is being continuously assessed through regular checkups. From his first test after the transplant up until 2015, a great deal has already changed. Elmar's heart seems to function like that of a healthy person.
If you look at the physiology of Elmar, He's really no different to a normal person. We can even actually say that Elmar is now overall one of the fittest 5 to 10% of all amateur sportsmen.
Elmar already has his first big goal. Can he become the first IRONMAN with a donor heart? It's not just a sudden heart attack that affects people, but also congenital birth defects. Nick, the youngest son in the Fuchs family, is 10 years old. He has lived his whole life with a heart valve defect. This can be psychologically stressful for the whole family. Because of a constriction in his aortic valve, Nick's heart must exert more effort to pump blood around his body. It's always been known that the day would come when Nick would need heart surgery.
With every year that passed, we felt more confident because the more he grew, the more stable he became, and the easier the operation would be. There was now more material to work with, so to speak. And eventually there was a point when it had to be done so that he could live his life.
For Nick to live as well as possible, he's receiving a very special heart valve. This heart valve, produced in a lab, offers a glimmer of hope for children. Researchers at Hanover Medical School are pioneers in the field of tissue engineering. They breed heart valves, which can grow as the human body grows, unlike conventional biological or mechanical transplants.
The alternative would be heart valves you can buy off the shelf, but they all have disadvantages, especially for children and young people. The lifetime of a biological heart valve is about 5 years. You then need another operation, and 5 years on, a further operation.
Axel Haverich is the creator of these regenerative heart valves. In 2006, he introduced the first valve of this type into the body of a 4-year-old boy in Hanover. To produce the artificial valve, the researchers use a human donor heart valve. In a strictly controlled hygienic environment, the flaps are completely freed from the cells of the donor. This is done with a special detergent solution. In the end, only a colorless framework of connective tissue remains and is ready for transplantation.
When the valve is sewn onto the organ, the body starts its potential endogenetic regeneration. The body wants the valve to look normal again and sends out white blood cells because they first believe there is something alien. But is it alien? These white blood cells, which could easily attack or eat up the valve, transform to so-called macrophages. These are cells which will eventually become connective tissue cells. And because they do not recognize the material as alien, they grow inside the structure and create, within just 6 months, a completely new structure entirely formed by the patient's own body.
A couple of weeks later, Nick receives his new heart valve.
Dann ist in seinem Bettchen schlafend.
He was asleep in his bed when we accompanied him down the elevator into the lobby of the operating room. The anaesthetist took him from us.
Das tut dann schon sehr weh.
That was really painful, when you don't know whether he will return or maybe not.
Kommt wieder oder nicht?
A full anesthesia, infusions, all his body functions are monitored. The 10-man team, led by Chief Surgeon Alexander Horke, prepares Nick's heart for surgery. To remove the old heart valve, a heart-lung machine must do the work of Nick's heart for many hours.
So, alles gut an der Maschine?
390, ich habe 2000 in der Maschine.
Dann machen wir den Druck weg.
Ja, Druck ist weg.
Aorta ist zu.
Ja, fährt weiter.
Herz wird langsamer.
Geht noch was? Ja.
Nick's heart is now still. The new heart valve can be prepared and introduced. It takes the doctors 4 hours to attach the new heart valve. A decisive moment for the team. The heart-lung machine is being turned off. Slowly Nick's heart fills with blood again. The muscle must now be activated. Will Nick's heart start functioning again by itself? It's worked out. From now on, Nick's cells will colonize the collagen framework and the flap will grow together with Nick's heart. Four weeks later, the 10-year-old has recovered from his surgery. For him, the heart valve offers a completely new perspective on life. No medication and no further surgery.
When you look at the pictures from the intensive care unit we took 4 weeks ago, and you see what he's doing today, the scar is healed. He's full of energy, plays Tin Can Alley, as we did this weekend, and runs around. Yes, it's a miracle.
To date, more than 200 children have received a heart valve like Nick, and everyone is doing well. In Boston, at the Ott Laboratory of Harvard University, scientists are using the same techniques as in Hanover, but taking it to a whole new level. For over 10 years, Harold Ott's team has experimented with how to create a whole living human heart. What sounds like something out of Frankenstein's lab is at the forefront of medical technology.
What we're looking at here is a decellularized porcine heart. So it's one of those scaffolds that we made by taking a pig heart and perfusing it with detergents, with soaps, to wash out all the cells. When you take a closer look, you can tell that the structures of the heart are preserved. So there's heart valves and blood vessels, but all the cells have been removed. So in some ways, this is the ideal backbone or the ideal scaffold to build functional heart tissue, or to build a functional heart for transplantation.
The team has gone one step further than in Hanover, as the decellularized heart is already being repopulated with the patient's own cells. They use normal skin cells from the recipient and transform them into so-called induced pluripotent stem cells. But how can a skin cell become a heart cell?
Right, the stem cell by itself is simply a cell that has the potential to become anything, and that has the potential to differentiate into multiple other cell types. So by applying developmental biology, we then take that very valuable building block and bring it to the fate of, let's say, a heart cell or a kidney cell or a liver or a lung cell. Then having that cell in our hands, we don't have an organ yet, but then we try to apply the principles of tissue and organ engineering to turn these cells into something bigger, something that can fulfill higher level function as a transplant.
Inside a bioreactor, the heart is repopulated with the new cells. After this, it is brought back to life.
What this machine does is it provides the organ with nutrients, with perfusion of media, with oxygen supply, so that the cells can engraft on it and form functional muscle. We know that in development, mechanical stretch and electrical stimulation are essential to the appropriate orientation of heart muscle cells within the developing heart. And that's why we expose this scaffold to the mechanical environment of a developing, of a pumping heart, if you will, so that cells orient appropriately and form functional muscle again.
However, the scientists believe 50 years might pass before they're ready for practical use. In Frankfurt on the 5th of July 2015, it's one of the hottest days on record. Elmar is about to put his new heart on one of the severest of tests. 3 years after his transplant, he's at the start of the IRONMAN, together with over 3,000 other extreme athletes. This combines a long swim, bike ride, and run. The last time he competed in an Ironman race, he failed to finish. Even for people with a normal, healthy heart, this is a tough physical and mental challenge. In the past, people have died taking part.
If someone told me if you continue to run marathons, you'll live 15 years, and without 20 years, I'd take the 15. Because for me to do sports means a better quality of life.
A third of the competitors drop out before the end. On his last legs, Elmar is determined to finish. He always takes a moment to honor the unknown person who donated their heart for him.
Physically, I'm very fit. According to my latest physical performance test, I'm possibly fitter than I've ever been. Psychologically, I'm not always able to hold it together. There are flashbacks. I only have to hear an ambulance and I'm reminded of everything. I suffer with a post-traumatic stress disorder. Sometimes I think people just don't see this. They listen to my story and they believe this guy got his new heart installed and now happily races an Ironman. But this is not the case.
Elmar is not alone in dealing with such trauma. Since 2007, the rehab clinic in Mörnersee, Germany, has had a whole department dealing with the new research area of cardiac psychology, the interaction between the heart and the mind.
In
1930, there was a famous German medical doctor called von Krehe who said that a problem with the heart is always a problem with the soul, a stress disorder. To begin with, nobody took him seriously. But in the last 30 years, there's been important and relevant research proving his observations to be correct.
Heart disease is a stressful condition and can weaken a person's spirit. It is estimated that between 20 to 30% of people who've experienced severe heart disease also suffer from depression or anxiety.
People become anxious when not in control. Most patients are under anesthetics for a long time. Then the heart-lung machine runs for quite a while. This is a frightening thought for most patients, that their life depends on a machine. My impression is that a lot of patients would suffer less if they were able to talk about it more.
Elmar knows all too well about stress and anxiety. He tries to overcome them by doing everything he can to keep himself fit. Sport is his therapy. Sports cardiologist Martin Haller is fascinated by Elmar's story. He's eager to study him and get to the bottom of why Elmar has such a strong second heart. The test results show that the training seems to be having a very special effect on Elmar's heart.
Elmar is a unique case in the way that when we observed his heart rate, and especially during exercise, that heart rate, like in a normal individual, does increase in Elmar to higher values. In heart transplant patients, usually it does not increase because nerves are denervated and cut during surgery. So in his case, the nerves have found the way from the body to the transplanted heart, and so Elmar's heart is, like in a normal patient, increasing heart rate during exercise.
During transplantation, all of the nerves between the heart and the central nervous system were disconnected. To begin with, this meant that his new heart wasn't controlled by the brain, but by messengers within the blood. How Elmar's nerves managed to reconnect and heal is quite sensational.
When someone says, I want to spend more time with the family or travel, they then wait and often don't fulfill their dream. Suddenly they're old. So this is an appeal to everyone, to actually do the things you really want to do, because life can quickly change.
Leben kann sich schnell ändern.
With this in mind, Elmar is determined to face the biggest challenge of his life, the TransAlpine Run. 7 days, 250 kilometers at high altitude, up to 15,000 meters. It is the most extreme mountain race in Europe. With a will of iron, Elmar trains hard to achieve his dream, and his heart is holding up well. But Elmar's time remains limited. Could scientists create a better solution for those still waiting for a new heart? This pumping machine is close to permanently replacing a weak heart. It's being developed in France by researchers at the Carmat Institute near Paris. The artificial heart might prolong the lives of people suffering from severe heart conditions for 5 years. The idea is that of 84-year-old heart surgeon Alain Carpentier. He made the groundbreaking discovery back in the 60s, developing the world's first artificial heart valve made from pig cartilage.
J'ai trouvé que si on utilisait des valves prélevées chez l'animal, on pouvait...
I found that if one uses heart valves from animals, it can prevent the formation of blood clots. Of course, once you solve one problem, then the next arises. In this case, an immunological reaction. But fortunately, I've managed to resolve it by means of chemical treatment. So I thought, why not use the same material for my artificial heart?
C'est le même matériau pour le cœur artificiel.
At the Institute, the heart valves from pig cartilage are further processed under carefully controlled, sanitized conditions. The membrane is lined with animal tissue. The team then treats these surfaces with chemicals to mitigate any negative reaction and rejection by the patient. One of Carmat's goals is that patients won't have to take blood thinners, thereby reducing the risk of dangerous bleeding. Normally, the central nervous system controls the human heartbeat. Within the Carmat prosthesis, this control mechanism is supplied by an array of sensors, software, and microelectronics. The artificial heart is driven by 2 battery-powered hydraulic motors. Sensors constantly determine the patient's condition and relay this information to the motors. The heart chambers, separated by the biomembranes, absorb the blood, transport it to the lungs, and pump the freshly oxygenated blood back into the circulation. The prosthesis is powered by batteries that the patient carries on the body. In a feasibility study, the Carmat heart was implanted in 4 patients. One of the patients died after just 3 months.
It was very early in the development of the device, and we noticed inside the device that there was an electronic component which was not functioning well, and because it was a manufacturing failure. And after that we put very strict component selection criteria in place to avoid that we could have that problem.
A second study with 25 patients is planned. The results could be a real breakthrough for people urgently in need of a new heart. With this artificial heart, researchers in Germany are also pursuing ambitious goals. Compared to the Carmat heart, the focus here is on developing a more comfortable power device.
We implant one coil into the body, and the other coil sits on the outside of the body, and then the current is inductively transmitted via the skin. Eventually, we also want to implant a small buffer battery into the body, so that you can take off the external part for half an hour or so. This way, the patient could take a shower or do such similar activities. Then it really feels like a transplanted heart.
Since 2009, a team of scientists led by Ulrich Steinseife at the Technical University of Aachen, has been developing an artificial heart that will eventually be fully implanted inside the body. Above all, the aim is to improve the quality of life. Therefore, the heart must first learn to adapt to the patient.
We have to teach it what it has to do when we go upstairs or when we get up in the morning. If you get up too quickly, we all know we risk collapsing because the heart can't power up that fast. Our artificial heart must learn to react in the same way.
On this test stand, researchers are simulating human blood circulation. The artificial heart is programmed for a variety of everyday situations. It is thus possible to judge how the circulation reacts to the heart when we get up, run, or rest.
First, our aim is to better adapt the whole system to the body. The system that exists today is so small, only because the engine has been placed outside. In fact, a lot of the components are outside the body. If we pack all this inside with very limited space, then you have to consider exactly how large the system should be and how much it should be able to support.
At the moment, all the artificial systems have one thing in common. They're still too big and too heavy. The researchers in Aachen are therefore trying to make the heart prosthesis accessible to younger patients. In laboratory experiments, they've already been able to get the artificial heart to beat 200 million times. That's about 5 years of human life. But how would it feel to have your life controlled by a machine?
It's a decision that everyone has to make for themselves. I think you can always say, bah, this is technology, I don't want that. But the real question is, if you get told either you get this weird machine implanted or you'll die within a few days, I think the decision is hard to make when you feel healthy, sitting comfortably in a chair.
Sascha Hasenwert has chosen an artificial heart. His beating heart is noisy, 72 decibels, about as loud as a vacuum cleaner. For a year and a half, he's lived with his system from a Texas company, the only one currently on the market. The 34-year-old suffers from a genetic heart defect.
Ich könnte jetzt damit gar nicht pennen, das ist halt das Thema. Man gewöhnt sich dran. Also ja. ich höre es gar nicht mehr. Nee. Also ich blende das komplett aus. Das hat eine Woche gedauert, dann nennt man das nicht mehr wahr. Wie funktioniert das Ding jetzt? Weil es ja tierisch laut irgendwie da. Was passiert da? Das ist eigentlich ganz einfach. Mein Herz wurde komplett entnommen, wurde durch 2 Kunststoffkörper ersetzt, durch praktisch ein Links-, ein Rechtsherz. Das alte jetzt ist schon komplett... Das ist komplett weg, ich habe gar keins mehr, das ist komplett raus. Okay. Das wurde dann praktisch an die Adern und was da auch immer, wie sich das schimpft, angenäht, genau. Wurde dann verlängert mit so speziellen Schläuchen und so weiter. Ja. Und in diesen beiden Plastikkörpern sind so Membrane drin, die praktisch immer auf und zu gehen. Ja. Die praktisch das Pumpen und Saugen simulieren. Und dieser Antrieb wird über Pressluft über den Rucksack gesteuert.
This artificial heart keeps people alive, but the quality of life is severely restricted. Sascha's pulse is set to 130 whether he's asleep or stressed out. Elmar only reaches these rates while running a marathon. There's so much more to do before machines can perhaps one day actually replace a human heart. Elmar is back in Munich. With only a few days left before the great TransAlpine Run, it is time for a final examination to determine whether his heart is well prepared.
I've not done such an event across several days. The IRONMAN or such like, that's a day, in the best case 10 to 12 hours or whatever time you need, and that's probably loads. I don't know, but I think the time it'll take is between 5 and 7 hours a day. Now, as a doctor, you'd expect the heart muscle to tire a bit, like any normal muscle.
Elmar's heart rate values are good. Nevertheless, Martin Haller remains concerned.
It is completely unknown what a TransAlpine Run with high altitude and long distances over a week's time will have an impact on the myocardium. And so we did what we call echocardiography, that's ultrasound of the heart. I'm absolutely convinced that it is a dangerous situation for a heart transplant patient to run a TransAlpine Run. So that's for certain.
Almost 5 years on from his operation, Elmar Sprink readies himself for his greatest sporting challenge. At 9 a.m, he takes his pills. Shortly afterwards, the shot from the starting gun. He is the first ever heart transplant to take part in the TransAlpine Run. During the 7 stages, he runs from Garmisch-Partenkirchen over the Pitztal to Sölden and further into the Italian South Tyrol to Brixen, a phenomenal strain on any heart. After 7 days, Elmar achieves his goal.
The route was incredibly beautiful. You notice how fast your pulse is racing, but it's not because of the transplanted heart. For me, it's such a luxury that I can participate, and that's great fun. But after 7 days, it's enough. I think I'll now rest for a week.
Elmar has not only managed to complete the TransAlpine Run, he's shown that his heart has even slightly improved. He's therefore not about to give up his love of extreme sports anytime soon.
I've made a picture for myself of who donated it, imagining they enjoyed sports. That just makes it easier for me. And I hope he sits somewhere and can see everything.
The heart is the motor. It's what is mostly challenged during exercise. So Elmar and his exercise capacity and his running, it's absolutely outstanding. "50 years after the first heart transplantation, and now Elmar running a TransAlpine Run, this is what medicine is all about.